Today on What's Next.
I wake up every morning welcoming the day because I have things to do.
Just move as much as you can and in lots of different ways, and your brain will thank you for it.
Good death is up to us to define, but it's really informed by how we live.
Hello and welcome back to What's Next. I'm Mark Middleton here with your weekly reminder to embrace the possibilities before you, the opportunities to create a life that you love. Scottish writer Alexander Chalmers said, "The three grand essentials of happiness are something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for." Chalmers lived to be 75, which was not too shabby for someone born in 1759, when the life expectancy at birth was about 35. And today's research backs him up. Purpose, connection, and a belief in something bigger than ourselves are all key to living longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. You know, we've produced hundreds of stories and conducted more than 1,000 interviews with men and women in their 90s and 100s. We call them our rock stars of aging. And when we ask them what keeps them going, the answer just about every time is some version of purpose or passion. We all need something that motivates us to get out of bed every day, and usually that something is tied to an activity that we love, something that keeps our minds intrigued, our creative juices flowing, and brings us joy. Grady Kimsey is a renowned fine artist. He has a piece in the Smithsonian. His work has been collected by celebrities like Robin Williams, and it graces the walls of private homes, museums, and galleries worldwide. And he still works every day. He had to give up painting because of the fumes, and when he could no longer work as a potter or continue creating his renowned mixed media and found object sculptures, he turned to paper construction. Grady lost his beloved wife not long ago. Family, friends, and fellow artists gave him not just the strength, but also the desire to keep going. Many people that get to be your age, they lose their spouse, they lose their desire to continue living. What keeps you going?
First, my wife wouldn't want me to sit down and die. Secondly, I wake up with energy to do. I wake up every morning welcoming the day because I have things to do. I don't sit around and mope.
That's an understatement. Kimsey doesn't just work on one piece, in one media, at one time. He's a prolific fine art multitasker.
I maybe work on 20 or 30 pieces simultaneously so that one piece doesn't become trite. You know, if I think about it too much, it's really not me. I really enjoy moving from one piece to another. I have in the studio here maybe 35 unfinished pieces that I need to finish.
Kimsey is not just an accomplished artist. He spent 26 years as a revered arts professor who mentored and inspired thousands of students to find their creative voice.
The very first thing I get through to them is do not try to work like somebody else. If you like Picasso and you want to work like Picasso, you can't. There's only one Picasso. If you work like him, you'll always be second best. Just be yourself.
The need to create is as strong in Grady Kimsey as it ever has been. He's mastered perspective and color theory. He knows the rules. All that's left is to break them. Once you learn the rules, can you break them?
Absolutely, that's art. Break, especially composition and stuff like that. Oh yeah, that's where I am now, kind of. I'm breaking art a lot, I think.
If not now, when?
Yeah, if not now, when?
Do you feel like a young boy sometimes?
No. I don't want to. That was that time and now is this time. I'm appreciating this time. I love my life. I take each day for what it's worth and do everything I can in that day. And I would hope everyone my age thinks like that, because I'll never just say I've had it. We stopped by Grady's home and paid him a visit recently. He's now 96, and despite some health challenges, he still lives alone and still works every day in his home studio. What makes him especially inspiring is his willingness and his ability to happily adapt in order to continue his passion for creative expression. Grady showed us his prolific output from recent months
And then we sat down and we discussed art, his beloved Tennessee Volunteers winning the College World Series, Katie Ledecky, the Orlando Magic, the dangers of AI, his love of old movies and British TV shows, and of course, the presidential debate. At 96, he said he feels no older than 93. Grady is fun, he's funny, he's bright, he's inquisitive, and he's a tremendous conversationalist. What a joy to spend time with and be inspired by his talent, his kindness, and his intellect. You know, it's having a purpose that keeps Grady going. Each day brings new ideas and new reasons to keep going and keep creating. Cecily Wilson interviewed another woman who knows the importance of continuing to grow and to try new things as we age. Many know her as Shaq's mom, but her name is Lucille O'Neill. She was 17 when she had Shaq. She went on to raise 3 other children with her husband, Phil, and they made education a priority with a no pass, no play mantra for their children. But Lucille had her own dream of going to college. That dream was deferred while she raised a family. It took her 30 years to receive her degree, but achieve it she did. Lucille graduated summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. And then in 2016, Bethune-Cookman University honored her with a doctorate in humane letters. And now she answers to the name of Dr. Lou. Dr. Lou spoke to Cecily about the importance of continuing to dream.
Where we make our mistake is that we stop dreaming. It was a dream at first. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I wanted to get there. That determination that I had, I prepared myself. My children were growing up. I took care of them. They were growing up out of the home. I said, Lucille, it's your time now. God said to me, Lucille, it's your time now. I got busy. I didn't have to pay for my grades for them to give them to me. I put in the work, and that I am so proud of as well. So when we stop dreaming, that means we have really limited ourselves. Don't limit yourself, because you start here, but you want to continue to grow and grow and grow. There are no limits in what we can do. None.
Is that the best advice, or what would be the best advice you'd give someone who is over the age of 50, or maybe over the age of 60, thinking, it's too late for me now?
I would ask them a question: what is it that you want to do? And then when I get that answer, depending on what that answer is, my encouragement always comes from these few words, that it is never too late for a new beginning. Simple. What do you want to do with yourself? Not what they want you to do, but what do you want to do? Everything begins with us. Self-determination, self-pride, self-motivation, self-encouragement. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, I'm going to make it. I will make it.
And as you get older, it's no different. Your brain still loves to move.
Welcome back to What's Next. I'm Mark Middleton, and today we're talking about what makes up a good life. Of course, physical mobility and mental acuity are vitally important if we want to enjoy our lives as we get older. Surveys of older adults show that losing our physical and our cognitive abilities and being unable to take care of ourselves are among our greatest fears as we age. The good news is that there is an overwhelming amount of new research on Alzheimer's and dementia risk reduction that proves conclusively that there is a significant link between our lifestyle practices and our cognitive health. In other words, certain health behaviors can significantly delay and even prevent cognitive decline and dementia. So what are those health behaviors? Dr. Cody Sipe is one of the world's top cognitive fitness experts. He's the co-founder of the Functional Aging Institute. He's an author, a professor, and researcher, and he says, more than anything else, our brains love movement.
From the moment we were born, our brain has loved to move. As it explored its environment and tried to figure out how to first roll over, and then to sit up, and then to crawl, and finally those precious first steps of walking. And as you get older, it's no different. Your brain still loves to move. Your brain needs that input from its surrounding environment. All that sensory information, it takes that in, processes it, and then determines what to do with it as far as movement goes. All three of those are really critical. So as we get older, one of the best ways to keep ourselves thinking well, being sharp, improving our memory is to move. How are we supposed to move? Well, really, it doesn't matter, but we need to move in lots of different ways. The more we can move, the better. The more variety of movement that we can do, the better. And the more complex movement we can do, the better. So whether it's doing things around the house, it's daily chores, it's recreational activities, it's playing sports, it's a hobby, it's an occupation, whatever it might be, we want to move every single day. One of the primary risk factors we see with cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease is just simply a lack of movement. It's too much sitting. It's being sedentary. And if we can break that cycle as we get older, we have a better chance of maintaining our sharp thinking capabilities, but also avoiding Alzheimer's disease. Unfortunately, as we get older, people tend to move less and less and less. And they also tend to move in less different ways. So instead of exploring all the great activities that they used to do, they start to shrink their world and start to scale themselves back. And maybe that's due to physical limitations that they have, or lack of fitness, or fear, whatever it might be. We have to reverse that process. Older adults stand to benefit the most from movement. So we want older adults to move as much as possible and in many different ways as possible. Get off the couch, get out of your chair, get out, explore your world, and just move as much as you can and in lots of different ways. And your brain will thank you for it.
You can hear more from Dr. Cody Sipe in our Bolder Brain video series, available for free on our streaming platform, watch.growingbolder.com. Be sure to check them all out.
To me, death is our absolute greatest teacher.
Welcome back to What's Next. Today we are talking about what makes up a good life, and I think it's fair to say that researchers, psychologists, and teachers from the many wisdom traditions all emphasize that within every good life, there has to be time reserved for reflection. Whether it's meditation, prayer, or just chilling on the front porch, putting a pause in our day does help our days go better. When we pause, when we reflect, our minds naturally gravitate to the questions that man has struggled with from the beginning, including the biggest what's next of them all. As we age and lose more of those around us, it's natural to think about the end of our lives, but for most of us, death is a subject we avoid at all costs. Recently, we spoke with Alua Arthur for an episode of our Growing Bolder podcast. She is America's, if not the world's, leading death doula, a holistic support person for someone who is dying and for their loved ones. And while they don't provide medical care, they do provide emotional, physical, and spiritual support. They provide education. They create spaces to hold conversations leading to increased spiritual and emotional well-being. Alua Arthur wants to help us all understand that embracing death can actually lead to a more meaningful life. That's easier said than done in our youth-worshiping ageist culture that doesn't want us to think about dying, much less talk about it. But that is the cultural conversation that she's trying to create. We ask her what effect that being with those who are dying has had on her own life.
It's given me a lens through which to view my life. Once I fully understand that this life that I'm living is absolutely precious, that every day that I get to live is an utter gift, it allows me to engage with the world in a way that reflects that, where I can be present for this life that I lead, the fact that I get to breathe air and spend time with people that I love and do work that I find meaningful. That to me is a gift, and it's a way that we can all view our lives, which allows us to reach the end feeling satisfied with the lives that we actually had.
So let's get into it a little bit, because you say there is a death phobia in today's culture, in today's society. I think that's obvious. What are the consequences of this death phobia? And given that we really can't choose the time or the circumstances of our death, why should we even think about it at all?
Well, the death phobia, I think, is something that we learn in society through a result of religion or our own egoic sense of self that places ourselves at the very center of everybody's story and cannot imagine life going on without us. And that death phobia often means that people don't spend the time thinking about the fact that one day they'll die, which means they don't use their death to inform their life. To me, death is our absolute greatest teacher. It can tell me exactly what I value, how I want to spend my time, what of me I'll leave behind, how I want to engage with the world and the people that I love. And so being in a practice of sitting with mortality allows us to be really present with our lives so that we can reach the end, not prepared, but rather just ready for whatever comes next, if there is anything at all, and be satisfied with what we did while we were here.
Maybe a bad way to describe it, but you have had a front row seat to countless deaths. And I've had conversations with people who work in hospice care who have described a good death. And it put me back on my heels. And I said, wait a second, what's a good death? What is a good death? I'm sure you've seen some. And I know we've got to be lucky to some extent and not be hit by a bus or something. But what constitutes a good death, and how can we help increase the odds that we might have one?
Well, I think the good death really depends on the individual, because for some, getting hit by a bus, having no awareness that their death is coming and just be gone in an instant is their idea of a good death. A good death largely relates to a good life. I try to take the judgment out of how people die because it creates compound grief for the people afterward if they think that their loved one died a bad death. And so a good death is up to us to define, but it's really informed by how we live. I think no matter how I meet my end, if I have lived my life in accordance with my values, if I've been as authentic as possible, then when I reach the end, for whatever that end is, then that will mean that ultimately it was a good one. I do want to say, however, that there are thousands, millions of people that die in all types of ways that none of us would wish on our worst enemies. And that to me does feel like bad deaths. And yet, if we can bring some sanctity, some sacredness, some honor to the life that they lived and thus the death that they died, to me, then it will be a good death.
Of course, there are no guarantees other than the big one that we don't want to talk about, but talking about it, understanding it, and planning for it can help increase the odds that we'll have what Alua calls a good death. Her TED Talk, by the way, Why Thinking About Death Helps You Live a Better Life, is profound. And her new memoir, Briefly Perfectly Human, Making an Authentic Life by Getting Real About the End, is drawing rave reviews from both critics and readers alike. You can find it wherever books are sold, and you can find our entire interview with Alua on watch.growingbolder.com. The moral of the story is always the same, folks. It's seize the moment, carpe diem, lean into what you love. And earlier in this show, we visited with 96-year-old artist Grady Kimsey, who is doing exactly that, as is this 108-year-old grandmother in our bold social clip of the week, another example of the life-enriching power of creativity. Welcome back to What's Next. Today we've been talking about what constitutes a good life. And, every week on Facebook, we ask our over 1 million followers to give us your take on a question. And recently we asked, what's your secret to a long and happy life? Ross McPhail said, curiosity and good relationships. Bronson Patrick Andrews said, being grateful for everything I have endured and survived to experience more of what life has to offer. And Milt Pressler said, keep moving with being active. As I say to people, I may be 77, but there is no rust. For me, there are so many ingredients, and of course, nothing is more important to our happiness than family and friends. But if I had to choose one quality, I'm going to go with Ross, who said curiosity. Curiosity is the fear killer. It's the antidote to boredom. It's the engine that drives us forward away from fear, off the couch, into experiences and into relationships. Curiosity is a superpower. It's a never-ending source of interest and intrigue. Curiosity, like many qualities, comes naturally to some, but it is accessible to everyone. Ask questions. Go down the rabbit hole. Admit that you might be wrong. Prioritize learning. Embrace uncertainty. Start growing bolder. We'll see you next time.